Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while for my 1984 chapter summary. So for those of you who are new, and I know there's a lot of you from the people that were following these next few videos, I'm going to try and drop all at once so that it can finish the chapter summaries of the books. It takes me a while because I actually teach it here the way I would teach it in class, and I kind of update it for more modern day examples so that you can make the connections as a teacher. I hope that that's what all teachers do, but sometimes it doesn't happen like that. And that's what YouTube is for, right? So here we go. We're going to talk about chapters 9 through 12. It's the end of book 1. So in this one, we're talking about Winston searching for something bigger than what he knows. Okay, so he remembers, and he's investigating, and he's thinking more and more about the whole system that he's in. He realizes that the paroles make up 85% of the population. And if there is to be a rebellion, it will have to come from the paroles. So with that said, I hope that you can make a connection to modern day times, especially with regards to populism and things that are happening in the world with right-leaning governments coming into power. A lot of this is a critique of that by Orwell. And obviously, this is not new to human history. We have a cyclical history here, and this whole chapter, these whole sets of chapters are meant to show that he who does not understand his history is almost doomed to repeat it. And people who don't understand it, but want or see inaccuracies or things that are weird or stand out for them, will usually, if they are mildly educated, if they are mildly curious, not even educated, mildly curious, they're going to go out and search for reasons why things seem abnormal. And usually that leads to rebellions or prisoners or dictatorships taking those people who are the disturbers or the rebellion. And we ended off the last video talking about rebellion. So this is basically, these set of chapters are basically Winston's thoughts on how he can change his situation, change his feelings. Like, he wants to feel more and more. And he wants to feel, he wants to know. And there is a lot of foreshadowing in these chapters with regards to him remembering. So a first part of someone feeling, especially when they've lived in a totalitarian government, and I say this as a teacher who's taught students who've come from totalitarian governments, when the party wants you to know something and believe something, true party members will believe it regardless of what they're told, regardless of if evidence is given to them that says, no, this is not correct. But, you know, they're so loyal and so loving to their party leader. The leader says this. We've seen it in cartoons. It's touched on in The Simpsons. It's touched on so many cartoons. The leader says this, so we must listen. So it's also the same thing here with Big Brother. Big Brother says this, and we must listen. We must believe. And, you know, Hate Week, all of this comes up, and Winston realizes that he remembers a time when he saw the former party leaders. So this is the foreshadowing. That's what the big F there is for. So he remembers seeing the former party leaders, the ones who started the revolution, at the Chestnut Cafe, which is a popular place for people who have fallen out of favor with the party to congregate. And he remembers seeing, I think it's Rutherford. Am I right there? Rutherford? I didn't write it down in my notes. He sees one of the party members crying. And first of all, an emotion being shown outwardly in public like this, I guess it would be accepted there. But this also does foreshadow what will happen to Winston later on in the book. And we talk about this. And we've come to realize, and even Winston has come to realize that, but probably doesn't acknowledge it yet, that he is creating his doom. With every entry of his diary, he is adding another nail to his coffin. And he knows it, and yet he actively pursues it, right? He comes across Charrington's shop, And Charrington is probably, again, you'll see this there. He's someone who is probably placed there to have people who are searching for memories come in, because it's an antique shop, right? So he's having people stand there. He's there as a sort of, you know this already, that he's there as a sort of bait for people who are or should be brought up by the thought police. And that's what happens. People who think, people who want more answers, they're people who are criminals in this society. And so what happens there is, if you place something like an antique shop, which harkens back to memories and longing and emotions and a time that was different from present, what you're doing is you're setting up the bait. And Winston took it basically hook, line, and sinker. He bought that glass paperweight, and he's shown that room where there's no telescreen. So anyone could have been Winston at this point had they come into the shop. Charrington is there. Charrington, I don't ever know how to pronounce this, is there to be the bait. So you have to understand that. And because he's looking at the life of the Paroles and he's obsessed with history, he's an easy mark for this bait that's out there. And there are probably various things and places for people who could be thought criminals placed all over the society at this point. And this is where you can make, as the reader, a lot of connections to the modern day world. You can even use social media as a perfect example of how we fall for things hook, line, and sinker. With regards to, if it confirms our bias, then it must be something we've got to look into further. It must be something that we can believe more in. And it's done here very well. So people play on that need for knowledge and that need to feel something in a society where things are so controlled and you don't have a say, and people who say something are thrown in jail. So you have to understand that. And this is in contrast to the Paroles' lifestyles. Like, even though they are the majority, they live so animalistically, or at least that's what Winston is told. They can do what they want with their feelings. They can do what they want with their sexuality. They can do whatever they want because they're not bound by rules of the party. So, let's never forget that it's it's definitely, they have the power to overthrow the party because they are the majority. But if you have the uneducated masses stifled or just happy enough, which is shown in throughout this part of the novel, where announcements are made that the ration of chocolate has gone up and you should be grateful, and where Winston is changing whether or not people have had, he writes that people have had more food than ever, when in reality, the week before, the ration for chocolate was cut, and now they've increased it to create a sort of crisis. They created a crisis to make you ignore other things that were happening, and we see that right now in worldwide politics. So it's something that was alive and well in human history when Orwell wrote this, and it just continues with the cyclical manner of different people leading the charge and sort of convincing the uneducated masses that all is well, they should just continue on and keep moving the machine forward. So that is chapters 9 through 12. And you can see this part as being the time where Winston is obsessed with searching for his past and his present and where he will go. And he's sort of nailing his coffin shut with every entry. So it's that idea that he who controls the past controls the present. And that's something that's a theme throughout the novel. All right, so we'll go to the next one.